Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Vaesen Nordic horror role-playing game put out by Free League Publishing. So this was actually sent to me by Free League for the purposes of doing this review. However, they're not compensating me for my time financially. They are not dictating what is said in the review. They are not demanding a positive review. They're not pre-screening the video or anything like that. So the opinions that I express in this video are 100% completely and totally my own. In the past, Free League has also sent me some products for the Alien role-playing game with the starter set and the Destroyer of Worlds box set, which I've done videos on before, and I've also expanded that collection to include the core rulebook and some other products. But this is one that I was really interested in and really sort of intrigued in when I saw the posting or the product listing on their website, and when they offered to send this to me, I absolutely accepted it because this, again, looks very interesting, very intriguing, and it's not something that I've seen yet in any of the game stores in my local area. So hopefully some people will see this, be intrigued by it, and will hopefully go out and order some of these because this is a really cool system. First things first, it does use the D6 pool system like I talked about in the Alien video. So you're still adding an attribute number to a skill number, and you're rolling that many dice. Success is achieved by rolling a 6 on any of the dice in the pool. With some exceptions, sometimes you may need more successes than just a single one, but every other result comes as sort of either a failure or just doesn't contribute to the overall success. So the basic core mechanics of the game are very similar to the Alien system, so I'm not going to focus too much on that. I'm just going to focus on the things that I find really interesting or impressive, or that really help set this system apart from the Alien game that I've already done videos on. One of the first things that I want to mention is just the overall quality of the core rulebook, or the rulebooks that come for this system. It's probably not going to show up super well on camera. I doubt I can get it to show up, but it actually has a very high quality hardcover with sort of just a very, very faint sort of textured feel to it, like some of the like the hardcover novels that you might get. So very, very high quality there. It does also come with an embedded bookmark that you can use to track or to mark some of your pages. I guess it's a bookmark after all. I don't know why the words completely escape me there. But the other thing is that the paper quality is also a nice thick paper stock. So it's not, it's also a matte feel to it as well. So it's not glossy. And it's got an actual paper feel to it. So it's not, it's sort of one thing that I do like about just the physical construction of the book over the Alien RPG, which that book is great as well, but the pages have sort of this glossy finish to it. And the second you touch the page anywhere, it sort of leaves like a permanent, thumbprint or fingerprint that's very difficult to get rid of, but you're not going to have that with this system. I'd also mentioned in a video where I just sort of shown that I had received these, that another interesting aspect of it are just sort of the font used in some of these sidebars. Because it very much reminds me of the fonts used in the first edition, like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, core books or rule books, as well as things like the Rule Cyclopedia. So it was weird, like looking at these sort of sidebars, seeing like the bold lettering there, and just overall getting the feeling like it was almost nostalgic, even though it was the very first time I had ever actually opened up the book. So really impressed with all that stuff, but even more so by the actual feel of the system itself. So as I said, it uses the D6 system, but there are some major differences that really make this feel completely different from the Alien system. So while the mechanics are the same, the tone and everything else is very much different. This is a system that is built around mysteries. So in fact, there's a whole chapter on the mystery, which is sort of the term that you could use for scenarios or adventures. The characters that you play sort of take place in sort of a mixed era Nordic sort of setting. but they're not heroes. They're not, tough soldiers or Marines or anything like that. They are just your everyday individual from various different backgrounds, but all of which are gifted with something called the sight. The sight means that you are able to see these Vaesen, or these creatures, which are sometimes known as the unseen, but you can see them. As a result, you sort of banded together with other individuals that also have the ability to see and interact with these creatures, and you're part of a society that essentially tries to deal with them if they are hostile or if they are impeding the progress or members of society. So it's a very sort of interesting concept from that aspect. In this game, you don't have your classes or anything like that, but you have what are referred to as your archetypes. And what's interesting about these is that they have some, they're not, again, they're not heroes. They have problems. They have their own issues going on. Part of your archetype involves, choosing your age, your motivation, which is sort of standard stuff. But then you have trauma. So you have events from your past that can shape or affect you going forward. You also have a dark secret. A dark secret isn't something that has any sort of mechanical implications, but they are something that you try to hide because it's a terrible secret. And it's up to the game master to try to incorporate those secrets in when it seems appropriate, so that they can have the maximum impact if they are exposed, or to try to force the character to do whatever they have to do to keep it a secret. So it's just an interesting tool that you can use to flesh out the characters. But again, it helps set the tone for the kind of game that you're going to have. Stats are generated not by giving you flat numbers like they did in the Alien role-playing game, but instead you choose whatever your starting age is, and they will give you attribute points and skill points. The younger you are, the more points you have to spend on your attributes, your physical and mental attributes, but less points to spend on skills. And the older you are, the less points you have to spend on your attributes, but you have more points to spend on the actual skills. So it's sort of an interesting, way of showing how aging can affect you as your reflexes slow down, or you're maybe not mentally as sharp as you used to be, but the things that you've learned along the way are still, a major part of your character, which again is really, really cool. We have our 4 attributes in this game. We have physique, precision, logic, and empathy. Physique and precision are basically your physical stats, and then your logic and empathy are your mental stats. And that's important because while this system doesn't use traditional hit points, you do actually have to track physical and mental conditions. So if we take a look, we're just going to sort of skip back here to the character sheet. Once I get it here. So if you take a look on the character sheet, there's actually no spot for hit points, which you might be used to for most conventional RPGs, or health points or anything like that. Instead, you have physical conditions and mental conditions. Certain attacks will obviously, like physical attacks or weapon attacks, will obviously attack your physical body, but there are things in play that can actually affect your mental stats. For example, some of the Vaesen have access to spells or magical abilities that might actually impact your mental well-being just as much as a claw or a sword or a punch might affect your physical being. So what happens is, instead of tracking hit points, you have 3 conditions before you reach a broken status. So for physical, you have exhausted, battered, and wounded. And then for mental, you have angry, frightened, and hopeless. So each of these sort of has their own minor mechanical effect, but the major thing is that each condition you take actually gives you a -1 to your dice pool for any skills that use the associated either physical or mental stats. So, for example, if you are exhausted, any skill that uses physique or precision, you'll get -1 on. If you are frightened or angry, we'll just go with frightened, you would get a -1 to any logic or empathy-based skill. In certain situations, you can choose which condition you get, depending on the circumstances in which you gain it. For example, pushing a roll. So if you roll for a skill check and you fail the roll, instead of using a stress mechanic, which we had in the Alien RPG, which doesn't exist here, you instead take on either a physical or mental condition, and then you get to re-roll that check. However, you do actually would incur that -1 as well. So if you were using a skill that is tied to logic or empathy and you try to push the roll, you have to give yourself a mental condition. And if you were using anything that uses physique or precision, you would have to give yourself a physical condition. The more conditions you get, the more penalties you get overall. So if you have 2 conditions, either physical or mental, they would give you -2 to your dice pool for associated rolls, although you always roll a minimum of 1 dice. So if you have only a 2 in something and you've already got 3 conditions that are associated to that attribute, then you still get to at least roll 1 die, but by that point you're probably in some pretty rough shape. So with that it's in mind, when you reach broken status, which is not one that you choose, it's one that you get after all the other 3 have been incurred, you roll a critical injury. So we have the critical injury charts back again. So let me just see if I can find those. So we have our critical injuries. So we have things like, foot injury, broken fingers, ruptured tendons, all the way down to like crushed chest, torn body, punctured lungs. We don't have any instantly fatal physical conditions or critical injuries in this system versus what we had in the Alien role-playing game, but we still have, all those sorts of physical injuries, but we also now have mental critical injuries, which can basically, which are far different, and something, again, I think is very interesting. You could go from being confused or overwhelmed, incapacitated, exhausted, had a panic attack, find yourself trembling, confronted with your mortality, or even get into some really strange ones like being, returning to your childhood in sort of like a mental state, horrifying realization, you become possessed, obsessed with detail, have a supernatural experience, invaded by others' emotions, or even suffer a split consciousness. So again, sort of interesting that we have both those ways of tracking both physical and mental damage. So that's something that I really, really like about this system. Then you also have fear as a thing. So seeing the monsters of the Vaesen can cause you to roll for fear, and there's different effects that can come with that as well. The Vaesen themselves are, extremely interesting creatures in that they're not inherently good or evil the way that you might think about monsters in a role-playing game. So if you're going after one of them, there has to be some sort of reason for it, for example. So it could be a situation where a Vaesen is being mischievous, or maybe it's being vengeful against a particular person. Maybe their home has been destroyed and they're upset at humanity for that happening. There's all kinds of different things that can come into effect, but it's up to you as a group of characters to figure out how you're going to deal with them, since oftentimes physical combat isn't really the best way to go about it. You can fight these creatures. They have different attributes that they have, including different attacks, different characteristics, and they even have their own condition tracker that they follow. However, you're very rarely going to actually be able to kill them. So, for example, with the Vaesen, what you do is whenever you deal a point of damage, you check off basically the top box on the condition track, and you just basically go down the list. Each one gives different abilities or different consequences for them. So some may actually give them a bonus to some of their skill checks or some of their combat rolls. Some may give them penalties. And when they reach the broken status, it tells you what happens there. But very rarely do you actually kill them. For example, with this ash tree wife, when they're broken, turns into a leaf litter and reemerges in the ash tree after 1d6 hours. So part of the game is investigating what's going on with these creatures, what their motivations are, and how to be able to deal with that. You do get some examples of the conflicts that you may come across when it comes to these creatures. You also can get information on rituals in order to actually banish them, or basically chase them away or stop them from being able to do what they're doing. So that's kind of neat, and as well as a secret. So the secret is information that you may learn from talking to locals or from researching in books. They often steer you towards the steps required for the ritual in order to banish them permanently. but oftentimes they will have misinformation or incomplete information. So you have to sort of puzzle things out and use sort of logic, which again I actually really like about this. It's I guess you could say it's a bit more of a cerebral type of game, where combat, like I said, it's a thing, but it's not the primary way to play this game. And I don't know, I really like that aspect of it. So that's one of those things that I would love to be able to play off in the future. Hopefully, at some point in the very near future, I'll get a chance to actually run this system. It kind of reminds me of some of the stories from The Witcher, for example, where Geralt will come across this creature that has this horrible reputation, but he's really motivated by something else. And in several cases, you have Geralt just sort of make deals with it to get it to go away and stop bothering people, instead of just trying to flat out kill it. So yeah, there's just something that I really kind of like about that. You also get a lot of interesting creatures from folklore and history, which I'm looking forward to sort of getting to know a little bit more about, and maybe seeing if I can research maybe the real world mythologies behind some of these. So like I said, Nordic mythology or Nordic history, stuff like that. They're folk tales. Aren't things that I'm super familiar with at this point in time. But I can say that just looking through some of these things makes me really want to learn more about it. So it's definitely sparked my interest from that perspective, which I think is nothing but a positive thing. And you get quite a few different creatures in here. You also get lots of really nice artwork in here. I love the artwork for the Will-o'-the-Wisp here. This it's just so cool, so kind of off-putting and weird, but kind of, I don't know. I just love it. So yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in this book. Like I said, I love the emphasis on problem solving, on exploring mysteries and uncovering information, and trying to come up with ways of dealing with your issues that don't just involve swinging weapons or firing guns. You can do that. It's something that you definitely can. And there are like human enemies that you may have to go up against, or like animals and stuff like that, where that is definitely going to be the way that you're going to have to deal with it. But I just love the overall idea of trying to figure out what's going on, why these creatures are doing what they're doing, and how you put a stop to it. So yeah, I really enjoyed that part of it, and the physical and mental aspects of the game are also very nice. Change up from what we had with the Alien role-playing game, which is more sort of built around being able to fight as an effective way of, at least trying to get out of a situation, versus this one where, it may be a temporary means to stopping what's going on, but certainly not a permanent one. Having the characters all be these flawed individuals that have suffered some sort of traumatic event in their past, having the ability to see these creatures that normal individuals cannot see or interact with, and having dark secrets to protect is a really also very interesting aspect to the game itself. So this is a system, like I said, I wasn't aware that I was going to love it as much as I do, but I'm really looking forward to giving this an opportunity, even though I don't necessarily know a lot about Nordic folktale or legends or mythology. I have a little bit of a leg up in being able to actually run this system, because there is a scenario included in this core rulebook, but Free League also sent me the supplement, A Wicked Secret and Other Mysteries. So this is actually a collection of 4 pre-written mysteries or scenarios that you can sort of go through, and they can either be done independently as one-shots, or like shorter gameplays, like 1 or 2 sort of sessions per mystery, or you can even try to link them together to create an actual campaign out of, which is something, again, that might be interesting to try to do. But this is a book I will also do a review for, hopefully in the very near future, and just sort of talk about the different mysteries and what my thoughts are on them. But so far, like I said, I'm really impressed overall with the system. And again, the physical quality of this book is the exact same as the physical quality of the core rulebook. The same kind of cover. It doesn't have the bookmark, which is okay. It's a smaller book, but it does have the same high quality paper stock that they use for the pages. So overall, really, really fantastic stuff by Free League. So if you are into horror role-playing games, but not necessarily like body horror or gory horror or stuff like that, but you're more like supernatural, horror type of stuff, then this is a really great system to check out. If you're familiar with some of the other Free League games, this is gives you, the sort of the basis to know how to play the basic part of the game goes. But so far, like I said, with the two systems that I have, I see very big differences between the two that really do make them feel like very separate systems, even if they use the same basic mechanics. So I really do like that, actually. It makes me want to check out more of Free League stuff to see how they manage that to differentiate each of the games that they have. So they have like a dark fantasy system out there as well, which I'm interested in hopefully getting a chance to check out at some point in the near future. I think they just released a starter set for that. So hopefully that's something that might come in my local game stores, or hopefully I'll be able to order through them. We'll see how that goes. But there's just a lot of cool stuff that I think Free League is doing, and I definitely think you guys should check them out. There will be a link in the description below to their main website, so you can sort of check out some of the games that they have there, because they have a whole bunch of other, different systems and different, genres that they support. So, there's going to be something, I suspect, for almost anyone who has a particular taste in role-playing games. So far, though, with the two that I've seen from them, with Alien and with Vaesen, the horror genre they have down really well. So they got the sci-fi horror down pat, and this Nordic horror is also incredibly interesting. Again, I just love the different approach to this system, and I think it's fantastic. So if you want a deeper dive into the Vaesen core rulebook, let me know in the comments below, and we can talk about some of the, like running encounters, dealing with Vaesen, or, talking about things like, because there's also like curses and enchantments, and there's all kinds of different fantastical elements to this book versus the Alien role-playing game, which is grounded in science fiction. So yeah, if you want to see a deeper dive, let me know. But if you guys have picked up this particular system, let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and maybe tell me some of the stories of characters you've created or scenarios that you've played through, and how the game master tried to deal with your dark secrets, or how you as a game master tried to deal with your players' dark secrets. And just share those experiences, because I always love hearing your guys' stories from those, because you always have just such awesome stories to tell. So yeah, definitely check this out. Link in the description below, but really impressed so far with this system. And hopefully someday, very soon, I'll get a chance to actually run this system, and hopefully even be able to do it as a live stream for people to be able to watch and see how that works. Anyway, once again, thank you to Free League for sending this out for the purposes of this review, and thank you to every single one of you who's taken time out of your day to watch this video. It really does mean a lot to me, and until next time, take care.